who do I want to be? What is the type of person I want to be? And therefore, kind of what are my values?
Values are important. The way they will express itself will change over time as we gain more experiences, as we get clearer of who we are.
Got deeper into my sobriety. It's made me take a look at myself.
We needed to go through that experience to be able to arrive to where we are today.
There was also kind of that problem of people hiring people like themselves.
Correct.
Rather than hiring people who had those complementary skills.
Why don't we hire people who've got the values of the company and then use it as an expression of culture? I need people around me who can take me through the journey I'm about to take, right? And people who will be supportive with me on that journey.
Welcome to The Upward Spiral, a podcast where we explore the transformative power of intentional living, starting with rethinking our relationship with alcohol. I'm your host, Michelle O'Brien. In today's episode, we are going to be deep diving into the connection between our values and our potential. We're also going to discuss how alcohol can cloud our judgment and hinder our growth. I am personally really excited about this episode because I'm going to share a little bit more about my own transformation and how ditching alcohol more than 2 years ago now allowed me to uncover my true values and has allowed me to unlock a life of purpose and joy that honestly I just didn't think was even possible. So this episode is for anyone who's felt really disconnected between their actions and their aspirations. For those who feel really ready to shed their old habits and step into their power. And today I'm really honored to welcome a remarkable woman who has not only mastered the art of high performance, she's also dedicated to empowering other women do the same. She's a dynamic leader, a passionate advocate for authenticity, and is a coach who's inspired countless women to break free of their limiting beliefs and step into their power. She's got this beautiful smile, boundless energy, and an impressive track record of empowering women in leadership. And she is just an absolute force to be reckoned with. So please join me in welcoming the incredible Nina Devouge. Am I saying your surname right, or have I just butchered that?
Devouge.
Devouge.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Should have practiced that before we came on.
That's all right. Devouge.
Devouge. Welcome, Nina. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. And have you looked at yourself in the mirror? I mean, you say I'm remarkable, but have you looked at yourself in the mirror? Today is the 21st podcast, right?
It is. Oh my gosh. I can't believe we got there.
I know. What was your goal at the beginning of the year?
24. That's what I put on my vision board. And I didn't even have a podcast. I didn't even know where to start in January, but I'd always wanted to do one. And 2024 was the year.
And how has it been so far?
Oh my gosh. Amazing. I've had to let go of any expectations. You know, I think initially I was like, hoping that I could monetize this and it would be like a great, content that I could kind of leverage in other aspects of my life. But actually what I've got out of it is so much richer. The conversations that I've had have just brought me so much insight into my own life. And I'm getting so much joy out of being able to help people. And it was really unexpected. And now my reasons for doing this have completely changed. I just want to have great conversations. And if each episode helps one person, then that's enough.
Amazing. Like, you're remarkable.
Excuse me, who's supposed to be interviewing who?
I know, but I just couldn't help it. I just wanted to put the mirror for you and say, like, have you looked at yourself in the mirror lately and just look back at what you've done since January? I mean, we're now in October.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. So in 10 months, you've already done 21 podcasts.
Yeah. It's been fun.
Yeah.
It's been fun. And how's your podcast going? Tell us a little bit about yours.
I think we've just started. We've just launched. And this podcast is, oh my gosh, like you're going to be on one of those. One of the podcasts, right? And it's called Take Her Lead, featuring real women with real stories of courage, determination, and resilience. And we cover every aspect of a woman's life, right? And every aspect of a human's life. I don't believe we can go through everything alone, but sometimes it's it's the courage to really take the first step, that no matter what happens to us, how big, how small, there's no big or small in absolute. Everything is relative, right? And to take that first step, first mini action that can take us outside of the current situation, so that we can do something with it and make a positive impact. Like you know, I was the same. Initially, I was thinking, where can I monetize this? Where can I get sponsorship? But same, the conversations that have been coming out have been so deep and so rich. And in fact, I don't know that I want to monetize it. I feel like if I did go for sponsorship or start looking and knocking on doors, I feel like that would be in some way, for me personally, I think it may potentially take away the essence of what it's about, which is having these raw, authentic conversations. So I don't know. I'm still open to seeing where the universe leads that. But in the meantime, it's just having these amazing conversations that I think for a lot of people, it's their first time being on a forum where they can actually share their stories with the world and know that they're not alone in doing so.
Yeah.
So yeah, very brave women coming out.
Oh, it's such a great podcast. And so tell us a little bit about how you got into coaching.
Oh my gosh. I don't know that I would say that I got into coaching. I think it was a natural progression, having become a manager who then had to quickly figure out that the times are changing and it's no longer, I say you do, right? I think when I started to become a manager, it was about 8 years ago. And I started to manage a team of 8 from day one. And it was one of those things where I saw, and I think it's also back to my consulting days and sales days, where to get anyone to take action, you have to inspire them and also hold them accountable. Like they have to be the ones to be held accountable, not me tell them what to do. They need to arrive at their own conclusions, and that's where there's more impact in doing so. And so I think that's kind of what happened very naturally. I didn't know that I was coaching. I think, to be fair, as a manager, I think I was doing mentoring, coaching, advising, counseling all at once, all in different spectrums, and all means different things. But what I did see was, when I did a lot of this self-development, I think I spent just last year alone, I spent about 100,000 USD on myself in self-development. And people think I'm crazy. Like, I remember, when you do your own personal P&L, right? Yeah. Your personal P&L, you're like, where did my money go last year? You're like, whoa, that's how much I spent. Yeah. But I do see the ROI, right? And the ROI is like, the person that I am today is a result of all of that. It's a result of all the experiences, it's all the result of all that discovery. And what I then saw was, yes, it's one thing to learn, but the best way to learn is actually to take action and practice. And I implemented the framework together with another coach in the company and the team that I was managing at the time. And I just saw this massive leap in the way that the women specifically in the team had developed such a voice and courage to speak up to very senior, very authoritative leaders who had a certain way of working, and even culturally hierarchical, especially in Asia. And that for me was a game changer. And I was like, I love that. And that was the moment where my heart just, shone and open. And I said, this is what I want to do. Now, 5 years ago, I had a dream. I was going to open up a company to help women. I just didn't really know what that dream meant. And it was because I had the opportunity to be in a workshop with women leaders with the company I was working at the time to define my purpose in life. And it felt like a natural progression from that moment where the pin dropped and to the time I was completely burnt out. A story which will unfold probably later on the episode, today's episode. And it just felt like I had to take the step. And so I went to do a coaching certification in high performance, and with the ICF certification as well. And now I have a bit more of a formal training, but I don't think that I think it was a natural progression versus an actual, I want to be a coach.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh. And tell me a little bit about Take Her Lead.
Take Her Lead, the podcast.
Sorry, the community.
Illuminate.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me a little bit more about Illuminate.
Illuminate is made up of two words. Elle, that means she in French, and illuminate, which means to light up in English. I'm a Singaporean and I speak French. So I felt it was a very natural way of putting the two words together. Anybody who becomes illuminated lights up the fire within them. They light up every room they walk into, and they light up the path for others. And it's a community and a coaching platform to help women create the career and life they love, for them to take charge and lead on their own terms, and as well as find a supportive network and community. And this is purely online with pockets of physical events. So that's the dream. That's how Illuminate came about. I'm really excited because we've grown our newsletter called Seat at the Table to about 3,800 women now. And I only started this probably about 5 months ago.
Oh my God.
I know.
It's amazing.
It just feels like it's snowballing, and it's in a very good way.
I'm not just saying this because you're here. It's actually one of my favorite newsletters
to
get. Yeah.
Thank you.
I actually read it because it's just, every time I open it, I'm like, this is me. Like, I just relate so much to everything that you're saying and the advice that you're giving. I'm like, yes, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to action this moving forward.
Thank you. It means so much.
And it's the same with your LinkedIn as well.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm fangirling half the time. So
mutual admiration club right here,
But it's the advice that you're giving is just so relevant.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's funny, right? Because when you start some newsletter and you look at the industry click rates, when someone opens, how open rates, it's the industry open rates about 20-something%. Yeah. And when I look at mine, it's 60-something%. I was like, oh my God, there's something I'm doing right, because it feels there's no real feedback, right? Apart from click rates and people just occasionally sending you a message going like, I love this. Thank you for sharing. And so it's really great to know. And thank you so much for that.
I think so much of it is the relevance and then the authenticity as well. Like, I think so many women are feeling what you're sharing and are finding it so relatable, and it's coming across in a really authentic way.
Thank you.
On today's episode, I'm actually going to use you.
Okay.
If that's okay.
That's what I'm here for.
In a good way. So I really want to get into why values are so important. I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story as to kind of about myself, as to kind of like what's changed in terms of kind of my value system over the last year. And I'm really hoping that we can talk a little bit about how women can help find their values, what it means, how they can apply them, what challenges they might face when they've kind of established their values, and any kind of tips and advice.
Perfect.
I don't think up until maybe about 6 months ago, I'd ever written down my values. Like, I don't think I actually really had even thought about them or like articulated them or had known what they are, which now I have done that exercise. It's actually quite shocking. But the more people that I've spoken to, I don't think a lot of people have gone through that exercise either, or know what's really, truly important to them. And I think, deep down, I've always had kind of my values. Like, I love my kind of friends and family. I value creativity. I value experiences over things. I value my health and physical and mental health are really important to me. In fact, I'm actually going to be really bold and read out kind of my values here, just to kind of give some context for where I'm going to go with the next bit. My values, so I value quality time with my loved ones. Like, that is so important to me. I value experiences over things. I value my physical and mental health.
Mm.
I value self-improvement. Like I really, invest like yourself, like invest in myself, whether that's kind of like learning or, again, linked to health and wellness and fitness. Like I love kind of my fitness side, but I want to get a little bit better every day. And I really value that. And that's something that maybe when I was drinking, I didn't. I value my independence. It's really important. And I value my integrity. But I value my integrity in the context of Martha Beck when she talks about being true to your integrity as being true to who you are and true to yourself. And then there's a bunch of others, everything from like valuing courage and gratitude and creativity, adaptability. There's so many on here, including kind of self-compassion and authenticity and everything. But those are kind of my core values, to give a little bit of context. And I think when I was drinking, I lost sight of them. Or I do. Well, first of all, maybe I hadn't kind of really identified them or written them down. But what was happening is when I drank, some other maybe more negative values would come up. And I think it was kind of at the detriment of my true values. So there was things like maybe overindulgence, dishonesty, manipulation, attention seeking, forgetting my worth. So like when I drank, I would often forget my worth. So just kind of a little bit of background into it. When I quit drinking, I didn't expect to reevaluate my values. I didn't expect to be kind of on that journey of like self-discovery. And it probably took a year and a half into not drinking for me to actually think, hang on, what are my values? And maybe how was alcohol impacting those to begin with? How do you think alcohol, even in moderation, can maybe cloud our judgment and prevent us from living in alignment with our core values?
Firstly, Michelle, I want to thank you for being so vulnerable. This is a podcast. This is not our coffee conversation. and this is actually the first time I'm hearing this too. So yeah, bravo to being so bold and courageous and so vulnerable. Thanks. And, you've done this exercise, right? So when you look back at the person that you were and you look at the person that you are now, you'll see evolution. You spoke about that too. And then you asked me, how can alcohol affect our values? If I answer, just rephrasing the question. Yeah. I will say that I am a social drinker, but not social to get drunk. Yeah. Just once in a while, I'll have a drink. Actually, to be very fair, one of the things I know, I'm going to give some context. To be very fair, I haven't been on a proper bender for a very long time. Yeah. And when I did in April this year, I had a 4-day hangover.
Oh yeah, remember those?
Yes. And I felt that it was something I will never want to do again. For me, and let me go to my values. My values are freedom, truth, courage, service. I mean, simple, right? Yeah. There are a few others, but let's say these 4 are the ones that I hold true. And when I drank and had a hangover for 4 days, I could not be of service to my family. I was not truthful to myself. I lacked the courage to say no, right? And I felt chained to my own desires of wanting to go on a bender that one time. But it reminded me that because I've been through that for 4 days, I have this hangover for 4 days, and I was angry, I was tired, I was not sleeping well, I was feeling sick in all forms, right? I asked myself, why would I do that to myself? Because I value health. Yeah. I value my body. It made me not want to go for a walk. It made me just want to hide in a room and close the curtains. And I felt really disgusted with myself.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I remember the first day I was like, oh my God, what's going on here? I just can't stop but, keep going to the toilet and, regurgitating everything out. And I remember my son asking me, Mom, are you okay?
Yeah.
And I had to say, yeah, it's probably something I ate without, it's a half truth.
Yeah.
Because, for me, I remember at the time I was thinking to myself, I said, I just lied to him. It's not great. I don't feel good about lying to him. I don't feel good about not being able to be with him. I just, if we think about all the things that we could be doing to living the best life we want to live on our own terms, I was not living on my own terms. But it was a great reminder to saying, okay, you know what? You know what it's like. You know your limit. You know it's 1, maximum 2 drinks. And keep it clean, right? Yeah. Like instead of a cocktail, do a gin and tonic or do a vodka soda, but just keep it clean. The types of what I drink would also affect me. And then keep it earlier in the day, in the night. So at 6 p.m. instead of at 10 p.m., right? And then knowing where to draw the lines. And then it's not one a day, it's once a week, other week, if I feel like it, but I don't want to be obligated to do it either. So there have been times when I don't feel like drinking. I'm not going to drink. I will say like, nah, I don't feel like it today. And I'm very clear. If I'm not in a good mood, I will not drink. Yeah. If I'm feeling like anxious or something, I will not drink, right? And it's all that bounce back again to the values, because I know when I'm anxious and when I drink, I know there's a bounce back anxiety that comes back to me the next day that makes me feel even more anxious. Yeah. And I don't want that. I want to be able to live life in we try to live life as smoothly as possible, but I want to live life in alignment to me and what I'm here to do, which is, I mean, with Illuminate, we want to impact 10 million women. How can I impact 10 million women globally if I was out of the bender?
For sure. So I always think now, looking back on it, I feel like if I'd have been really clear about my values 20 years ago when I was 18, I wouldn't have got myself into some of the situations that I did. I wouldn't have drank as much as I did. And, there's part of me that's just like really, really frustrated that I didn't do it sooner, that I didn't define my values and the type of person I wanted to be sooner. But
you've done it now.
Better late than never.
Yeah, you've done it now. I think, it's always good recognizing, right? Yeah. At the same time, we're humans and we needed to go through that experience to be able to arrive to where we are today. And I would give myself some grace in the same way as I would ask you to give yourself some grace and the experience that, and you're right. Everything is better in hindsight. I wish I had done some things differently too, but I also felt it was necessary to define who we are. And
we wouldn't be here.
Yeah, exactly.
Having this conversation for sure. So when I kind of got into writing my values, I kind of just took a notebook and just started kind of brainstorming and pulled out things that were, really stuck out to me or hit a chord. Is there a bit more of a process to it?
Yeah, great question. So one of the exercises that I like to run people through is a visualization exercise. So one of them, I'll run you through the process. And basically I get them to think about 2-3 people that they admire in their life. So they start to name them down, whoever they are. Some people name Nelson Mandela, some people name Mother Teresa, some people name their parents-in-law, people that are closer to them. It doesn't matter. I just get them to rank, to write them out. And then I ask them why. What is it? What traits are they showing? Or what are some things? And then we do like a common denominator exercise. So for instance, someone would say, I really like Nelson Mandela because, he stuck to his guns. He was very clear this was the right thing to do. He did it with integrity. He was courageous, things like that. Then some people would say, I admire Mother Teresa because she was full of love and compassion and, you know, all of these things. And then they would go to, oh, you know, my father, he demonstrated, you know, honesty. He deeply cared about us. So we try to find the common denominator for values. And then I asked them for 3 people who they absolutely, you know, don't admire or for lack of a better word, they find repulsive, right? Yeah. And then they do the same exercise. So now they have a dichotomy of like the best and then the worst. And we then go into exactly a ranking exercise of why it means so much to them and why this means so much to them. And we try to find the opposite words of each other. Yeah. And so then we make the opposites. It might not be a fully opposite list, but it ranks whatever the opposite is of the repulsive worst values. Yeah. We then add it up into the value sets that of the people that they admire. So the list gets longer. And then I get them to write a sentence of what it means if they were living this specific value set. So if like, what does it mean for me if I were to live my life courageously? You know, so then they write down. So then that starts becoming a visualization and almost an affirmation. Like when I live my life courageously, this is how I will show up as. Yeah. And so that's kind of like the process that I take them to. In some of my workshops, which are very short, I actually put a 50 top values and I just get them to pick 5 as a starting conversation point, and then, you know, go back and I give them another list of 100 for them to pick what resonates with them. Yeah. But that's kind of where we're at, like in terms of defining your values. And it's so important because it is really the compass, right? Of how our North Star. It's like, you know, you have your values that are the core of who you are, that when you express them, it becomes your personality, your character. Yeah. That's how people perceive you. We talk about personal brand. That's exactly it. You need to be defined by your values first. Yeah. Talk about leadership. Your values need to come first. It's like how, when you, as leaders or even as mothers, or, you know, we, or as people, we are sometimes put in a difficult spot and we have to do the right thing based on our values, right? And they're just some universal ones that there's a common intersection, but it's the expression of how we then carry out a situation, because the situation is so tough. We have to do the right thing, but how do we do the right thing is then expressed through how clear we are on the values and how much we're willing to stick to them.
And I think even though I hadn't identified my values, let's say 20 years ago when I was 18, is they were there. There was a set of values there, but it was, I valued, probably still valued experiences over things. You know, I've never been that kind of materialistic for stuff. You know, I always kind of chased great experiences and travel and everything. But, you know, I think one of my values back then was probably fun, friends. You know, I kind of valued connection in any form, regardless of the quality of the connection. I think I was always looking for volume of connection rather than quality. I think there was, you know, valuing experiences in the sense of like experimenting with new experiences, whether they were good or bad. And, you know, I suppose the values are there, or they were there, which maybe led to some choices that I wouldn't necessarily agree, you know, wouldn't necessarily go for now. Your values change, right, over time?
Yeah, I mean, the values change for sure over time. And also, I think I find that it's also a factor of time. When not just time in terms of years, but time in terms of days. Like, what will I do in my day? Yeah. And then going back to how I spend my day, does it nourish me? Is it meeting my values? And funny we talked about that because the other day someone asked me to do something. Asked me if I was willing to do something for them. And it was something do with them, not for them. And in my heart I was like, do I really want to? The fact that I asked myself, do I really want to? It wasn't an absolute yes. For me, felt like a no. Yeah. You know, and that's also back to then I tried to dissect it a little bit, because I was like, why is this not being a yes? Yeah. And I realized that it was because I wanted freedom. Wanted freedom. And that's also the reason why I don't take investors for the company, even though I know it could scale much quicker if I did. But I chose very intentionally not to, because I wanted to call the shots of, not because I want to be a micromanager, but because I want to be able to see, work with a non-for-profit if I and do low bono work if I wanted to, and then work with a certain type of company or work with a certain type of client because I felt more in line with them, not because it impacts my bottom line. So I think that's some of the things that came about for me, that values are important. The way they will express itself will change over time as we gain more experiences, as we get clearer of who we are. Like you, at 25, I was only getting clear on what my values would look like. And sometimes, interestingly enough, you said, I only started to do it now, right?
Yeah.
At 25, it was the first time I left home. It was me having a very heated discussion with my parents about wanting to leave Singapore, wanting to live outside of my home, which is very uncommon. It's so rare in Singapore at the time. This was 15 years ago, right? But that was a moment where I really, really started to see what was so important to me, which is freedom, which is I didn't know who I was. It was almost like I had to go and do this massive partying, really go on extreme. And then I remember that was 1 year. And then the next year I went to the opposite extreme, which was recharge, right? So the sprinting and then the recharging, it felt like there was two extremes. But from there, I managed to start to get very clear on who I was. So these things about values, sometimes, yes, you can do the exercise and do reflections of, this was who I was. This was when I felt, I would have done things differently. I know better now. But sometimes life just throws us an experience that we have to take it and go, you know what? There's some lessons here that I need to discover, and I don't know what I'm here to discover yet, but I'll use that as an opportunity too. And that speeds up the process.
I spoke on this podcast to an incredible woman, Elizabeth Theodorus, and the topic of our podcast was about unbecoming. And so it's this idea that maybe we're not evolving, like maybe it's unbecoming everything that we thought we were meant to be, and the person who maybe society and culture has impacted, and actually it's kind of shedding all of those those tags or those labels or those names or whatever it is, or beliefs, to actually become the person you were meant to be. Do you believe those values have been there all along? Or do you think those values come with time and wisdom?
Oh, that's a really great question. It's back to this question, right? Do you have the DNA markers for cancer already? Yeah. And are they just, and if they are there, when do they actually become cancer? And I draw this parallel because I think there was someone who I spoke to, and I can't remember, this was years ago. And he says this, and he's a scientist by training, and he says your genetic code is already there. It's going to be the environment around you that brings it out, or brings out the, let's say you have cancer DNA markers. The environment around you and how you live is going to trigger it or not. So the stress environment, right?
Yeah.
And it made me think about the parallel between that and our values. Do we, this idea of universal values like love, truth, service, compassion, empathy, these are universal values, right? I don't think anyone is born bad. I truly believe that everyone is born with purity of heart. And when you talk about connection, people deeply desire connection. No man is an island. It's exactly that. We can't live on our own. We're humans that are not designed to live on our own. So this thing around, the values are that, I personally see it more like our values are already there. And then it's in our environment that we have to walk through multiple fires in order to rediscover ourselves. And when we say, defining my values, it's, are we defining or are we rediscovering? And I find it so interesting because every time I run a workshop, it's the same. There's a common denominator of love.
Yeah.
Through compassion, through empathy, there's a common denominator in every workshop of the women. Eventually, when we ask them, okay, what were some of your values? Everyone's like empathy, compassion, and deep down inside, that's love.
Yeah.
So to answer your question simply, I think it's just we're born with it. We're born with our values DNA. We just have to go define or rather rediscover what they are.
I wonder if there's like a core list of, 30, 50 values, and actually the values dial up and down, like depending on where you are in your journey in life. And actually maybe every person is born with the same set of values. Let's say it's 50 values, but the ones that are important to you are important at that particular moment in time might differ from somebody else's.
Same as strengths. In Gallup strengths, there's like 25 strengths that every person has, apparently.
Yeah.
And I say this because I don't know the research behind it, but I do know that there are 25 strengths. And you show up in your top 5, and there's like top 5, and then there's a top 15.
Yeah.
And the top 5 can go up and down within the 15, but it would in different points in time. But it would be drastic, and it does change even in 6 months. It changes. So it's also I see that as if that's the strength, then values are also probably following a similar principle.
Yeah. Me and my husband love the Gallup Strength Finder.
It's so good, right?
Yeah, we do it like every year and get really nerdy about it. And my husband is like a massive fan of it.
Is it?
It's just really funny. I think because we're both a little bit competitive in a good way. And so, but yeah, he always, I can't remember, he always has some like really odd ones, just because he's quite unique in the way he thinks, which is awesome. But it's always quite funny when we do it.
Yeah, I love it.
He's always like, oh, I knew you'd have that one.
Well, if you like that, you'll like the leadership circle profile.
What's the leadership circle profile? Okay, tell
it's
me more.
Well, I haven't actually been certified in it, but I've done it a couple of times. And basically, it's a circle, and it shows like the top is with you are. Anyone who's listening, if you know it, please forgive me if I'm completely massacring. But there's a difference between. If you're more strategic and creative,
I've done this one. The color one. It's like if you're red, blue, green.
No, that's disc.
Okay.
Yeah, that's this. But this one is it's actually so it basically talks about the leadership style of somebody, and if you're more distributed, then you're a more holistic and more holistic leader. Yeah. But if you're lopsided in one way, then you're either too compassionate and empathetic, or you're too authoritative and dominating and controlling. Yeah. So it's that one's a really good one. I've only done it twice, but I would love to get certification in it. I think that was a really good one.
Okay, yeah, I want to do that one now. I've done the color one. I did that one at Disney where it was like, the red, yellow, green, blue.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of very like red and yellow.
Me too. I knew we were friends.
Yeah. But it was so funny because like most of the Disney team, I think there was only like out of 30 of us, there was only like 3 of us who were in red. And
really?
Most of the team were kind of more in the green space, a few, which is kind of very empathy.
Yeah.
The blue was kind of very analytical. So there's a few in blue, the yellow, very kind of optimistic.
Yeah.
And then the red, how would you describe the red?
It's
decisive, maybe.
Decisive, exactly. And it's there's this book that I go to constantly called Surrounded by Idiots by Thomas Erickson, and that's it. It actually talks about, the whole book is about the disc, the red, blue, green, yellow, and that's important, right? Because we think about value sets, and then these being the personalities. There is an intersection. It's just how it's being expressed.
Yeah. And that's it. Is like, I think we had where there were so many people in the green category that there was, so everyone was kind of sitting in this kind of empathy space, that maybe at times it made it really hard to get things done.
Yeah.
And it also then meant that they were clashing with anybody in red.
Yeah.
Because people in red were like, look, we're trying to move this forward. Let's make some decisions. And I think there was also kind of that problem of people hiring people like themselves.
Correct.
Rather than hiring people who had those complementary skills.
Correct. Yes, the similarity bias is real.
Okay, we've totally digressed. It's super interesting, but I think it's probably like that with values as well.
Yeah.
And I worked in advertising for 14 years before kind of moving into marketing client side. And I loved working in advertising agencies. Really fun, always working on different clients. It wasn't necessarily very political. You were kind of, if anything, it was like us against the client. But it was really fast paced, great creative work, great energy. Absolutely loved it. But the environment was very work hard, play hard, very kind of focused on drinking and everything that kind of comes with that. And it was fun. It was great to kind of be in that in your 20s, but kind of as you get a little bit older, you're like, okay, I can't quite do it. Values driven kind of organizations or people within organizations, like how can that impact you and in your kind of career?
An organization is made out of people, right?
Yeah.
And it's back to this, when, a lot of the time the company says, oh yeah, these are our values. But most organizations have our values written on the wall.
Yeah.
And then you have culture. And culture is meant to be an expression of those values.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, companies, I say this from my view of the world, having been in HR and working in talent acquisition for 18 years. In my view of the world, companies still have not nailed, most companies, there are maybe one or two companies that I know who've done it really, really well, but most companies have not nailed down the values-based hiring. They nail down the technical-based hiring. And that is very painful. It's a problem. Because when you're a small startup company, let's say we start up from 0 to 100, right? You will hire people who can do the job. But once you start to grow the company, the people who can do the job might not be the people who will be the next 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people. And that's where, if we don't nail down the values-based hiring early, the problems are going to continue to build over time. Because in the beginning, yes, you just want people who can do the job. Okay, you're going to shift from generalist to specialist. But why don't we do that for our values, right? Why don't we hire people who've got the values of the company and then use it as an expression of culture? Of course, you can then argue and say, but don't you want diversity in your hiring? It's like, yes, then that will also bring diversity in values, right? And there's one thing that I remember working in an organization where, I was working in this organization where this was early in my career, where everybody had to go out drinking. And I remember the question that was asked of me at the time was, well, given your social background, are you sure you can go out and drink with your clients? This was 18 years ago. My first recruitment company. And I remember looking at the person and say, well, I don't drink. At the time I wasn't drinking. I said, I don't drink, but I don't understand how it would impact my work if I could go out. Yeah, but I don't have to drink to be effective at my job, right?
Yeah.
And I remember at the time he said, you're going to be the first one that we hire who doesn't drink. And he said, and how do you comfortable? I said, I don't have a problem with all of you drinking. I just have a problem if you were to tell me I need to drink. I went ahead anyway and took the job. Actually, it was one of the fun, most exciting jobs I've had, and I didn't feel too judged for it.
Yeah.
The second job, though, where they were not as transparent during the interview process, but there was a drinking culture, and I remember they told me 3 months after I cleared probation, they said, we weren't sure you're going to make it. And I asked them why. And they said, because, you don't drink, and our clients, is exactly the same reasons, but they were just not transparent in the interview process. Yeah. And I thought to myself, what kind of company did I just walked into? But at the time, I was still very early in my career, right? And it was like, get a job, learn as much as you can, make enough money so that you can decide what you want to do after. And at the time, it was pretty lucrative. So more than what my friends were making. And I was thinking, could I do this for a few more years? And I remember leaving the company at one point because I felt like I was selling my soul to do something for this. And so back to the question around what can organizations do, I think be transparent about it at the start.
Yeah.
I mean, we are now in a culture of transparency. Everything is written on Glassdoor and Blind. I don't know if Blind is used that much here in Asia, but everything is written on Glassdoor and Blind. And you can find out more about a company and its culture and its leadership and its management and everything, right? By just being on these websites. And so I find that companies who don't go and who intentionally say, oh yeah, don't pay attention to whatever they say on Glassdoor, I think they're putting their blinkers on and not actually looking at the problem that they have right in front of them. Because that's an opportunity to say, am I really living in line with the company's values and the culture? Is this what we're selling? Is the product, right? Because we sell, when you go out and you talk about the employer brand, it's about, this is what we do, this is our mission, this is who we are, this is why we do what we do. And a lot of time, the Glassdoor messages and the companies and what they think they're doing, there's a misalignment. And so it's that moment of leaders, managers should be looking at, there should be somebody in the company, whether it's PR, whether it's someone in HR, to look at those and go like, hey guys, we have a problem. Because the employee voice surveys are not always are not always honest and transparent, because people might not have that psychological safety to feel that they can share that information. So it's a long-winded way, but there is a systemic issue. There is a systemic issue of companies putting their blinkers on and not wanting to face that because they say, oh, we're just working on profit. And I say this as many, many companies. Then there's a systemic issue of leaders, people who work for a company who may not have figured out what their values are yet because they've not done the work. And there's so many people I know who've walked through life without actually having done any reflection on themselves. And then, they come to a point where there's an emergency brake being pulled, and we're seeing more and more of it. I coach a lot of women actually and men around this phase in their life. Or something does happen to them and they ask, who am I now? And what do I live for, right? Like identity crisis, right? That's why they say, oh, the midlife crisis or things like that. It's because we've been sleeping through life most of the time. It's a long-winded answer to your question, but there's a whole totality in there.
And this is really, really fascinating to me because I'm working with a new startup at the moment, and I've been writing kind of their brand story, their brand positioning last week, and I've written down the values that are important to kind of the founders and the product and the brand. But it's actually, okay, how do we then take them through the organization as a whole? It's 3 people at the moment. It's very small, but it's going to grow and they're going to hire, and it's actually keeping one eye on those values. And I think we wrote 20 values down, maybe not quite 16. Your employees or your hires should at least be ticking a couple of those boxes.
More than a couple.
Yeah.
One of the things when I used to train interviewers is, how are we knowing that these are the right people to be hiring apart from technical skills? So we actually create questions surrounding the values of the organization.
Yeah.
And then pick up for what they're saying. And then we probe into to understand how they are demonstrating grit. The last organization I worked with, how they're demonstrating agility. How are they demonstrating positive intent. Things like that. It's like a lot of the soft skills that you're not going to get from AI. Yeah. That's also one of the things that I teach in my course for women who are trying to navigate their careers today.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, AI is going to take away our jobs. I was like, no, AI is not going to take away our jobs. You master the AI, but you need the soft skills and you need all these other things that to shine through, which are your values. Can you demonstrate self-awareness? Can you demonstrate growth mindset? Can you demonstrate resilience, grit, agility, all of these things, and which is what you will need for your startup anyway.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about this course, mainly because you potentially could be selling to me. So I'm like, okay, this sounds interesting. This sounds like something I need.
Yeah. So the course is called Aspire. And it's aimed at career comeback. It's aimed at career navigators. So pivoters, actually, career pivoters. It's aimed at even early careers. So the whole idea is I teach women how to use AI to identify their resume, write their resumes, identify which companies to work for, reach out to the right people within the right organization. And then I also teach them how to master their interviews in this world of AI. What are companies looking out for? And even if companies were not looking out for that now, they will be as times are changing because, we're talking about the skills that need to be demonstrated outside of what you know in AI. Yeah. The feedback so far with my initial group of users have been really, really positive. At the end of, I hope to impact so many women, and that's why the course price is actually really affordable. Yeah. And the whole idea is that everybody goes into the course at whatever time they want, an evergreen course, and they go through 6 months of monthly coaching. So they get an opportunity to also be part of this segment called Beyond the Resume, where I invite a senior talent leader or a senior woman who can help to share a bit more about what are they looking out for beyond the resume.
Oh, I love that. I think one of the biggest reasons why I stopped drinking was because I felt like I wasn't reaching my full potential, and I felt like something was holding me back, and I could not put my finger on what it was. And there was just this desire to see what I was truly capable of. Like I really, really felt like in everything I just was just not quite getting to what I was capable of.
Yeah.
Have you got any advice for myself or for any other kind of men or women listening about how other ways that you can unlock your potential? Like obviously not drinking was huge and it was the unlock that I was looking for. But now I've unlocked it, I've almost kind of become addicted to this. Okay, well, what else can I do that's gonna unlock me even further, unlock my potential even further?
Oh my gosh, so much. But I think I will start with one, define your values. Yeah. That was the crux of what we spoke about today.
Yeah.
Because once we define our values, we know how we want to spend our time. We know what's important to us. And then number 2, set boundaries. Because the more we say yes to something, the more we're going to say no to something else. And the defining of the values and setting the boundaries need to come hand in hand. Back to this, it's like, oh, I'm looking for connection, or I'm looking for freedom, or I value for connection. I value connection and I value freedom. Okay, I value connection and I value my freedom. Great, I'm going to spend time with Michelle today because we're going to have a great connection. And I also value my freedom because she allows me to be whoever I want to be. It's an example, right? Then when we're in alignment, right, with who we are and what we do, it's so much easier, right? Because then we can really, truly also think about what is my bigger game? What is my purpose? Yeah. One of the things that happened to me was when I started to discover what my purpose was, which was how Illuminate came about. Creation happened. Yeah. I didn't create, it happened. It was like a flow. It was like everything just comes out of me. I don't have to think. It's very much in alignment. It felt like there's a force, that just runs right through. And we talk about unlocking our potential, stepping into our power. I felt like I unleashed something much bigger, which is beyond anything I can say. And I agree with you. The drinking, even now with one drink, I feel a little bit hazy the next morning because I'm also not so used to it anymore because I'm not drinking as much. Which is also why I'm like, okay, I can allow myself one, and with certain groups of people, but I don't have to do it. And if I
Yeah.
don't do it, if I say yes to it, then I know what I'm going to get myself into the next day. And can I be okay with that?
Yeah.
You know? So if it's a Saturday morning, okay, fine. I don't have
Yeah.
anything big on Saturday. It's okay. If it's on a Wednesday night where I know I'm coaching a client at 8:30 the next day, the answer is no. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So that those boundaries that we need to set for ourselves as well.
Yeah. And I think that's it. I think being able to, once those values are clear, and then you know kind of your boundaries, like it becomes really easy to equate at every opportunity and look at every opportunity and say, okay, yes, this is something I want to move forward with, or something I don't. So over the last year, I'm actually a big believer in manifestation. And I look back and I, you know, even from being young, always wanted to live in a beautiful, hot, sunny country. I wanted to live by the sea and have palm trees. And, you know, there's so many things in my life that I've definitely kind of manifested either really intentionally or really unintentionally. And I think, you know, over the kind of the last couple of years, I've been very focused on learning more about kind of manifestation and really kind of aligning, okay, my vision board, what do I want? You know, trying to kind of remove any barriers or like any limiting beliefs, getting to work, you know, because you've got to work on it. This shit doesn't just happen. You can't just sit and imagine. The way manifestation works, you can't just sit and imagine that life and it's going to like land in your lap. You do have to work towards it, and so on, and kind of all of the other steps. But if you're not aligned in your values and who you want to be, it's never going to work. And I think what's happened over the kind of last year, you know, as I've got deeper into my sobriety, it's made me take a look at myself and maybe kind of answer that question of like, who do I want to be? What is the type of person I want to be? And therefore kind of what are my values? And now that's become really, really clear to me. Like everything, like you just said, you have that power run through you. Everything just feels easier. Everything just feels more aligned. Like opportunities are coming to me that I'm like, this is just so aligned with my values and who I want to be. And I'm like, okay, this is actually incredible.
I couldn't agree more. I just forgot I'm going to throw in one more because we talked about that and setting boundaries and you talked about opportunities. And the one thing I find is look at the people you're spending your time with. The network, like by network, I don't mean, you know, as the professional network. It's the group of people you're hanging out with. Because I find that the people who got me up to here are no longer the people who are going to get me to the next phase of my life. And I found that the more I was hanging out with the people who are going to help me with the next phase of my life, and the more and it's not about rejection. No, it's just, thank you, you've gotten me here. Now I need a different group of people. And, you know, I'm going to quote Cody Sanchez on this one. And I'm going to reapply it into what I mean is, she says, you have to go into a group of people and you cannot be the smartest person in the room. If you become the smartest person in the room, then you need a different group of people. And I would put that into like where I am today. I'm not going to be the smartest person in the room. I'm always going to be the most hungry for knowledge. But the minute I find that I have nothing to learn anymore from anyone, whether from a like value sets, we're no longer the same. You know, we have different desires. I need people around me who can take me through the journey I'm about to take, right? And people who will be supportive with me on that journey. Right. And that's where, you know, you find your tribe, and you need to find your new tribe. Who will help you get to the next level. So so values, purpose, setting boundaries, and finding your tribe.
I love that so much. And that is why you should always hire people who are smarter than you.
100%.
Never ever fear that they're going to take your job.
Never.
You always hire people who are smarter than you.
100%.
Who are better at doing that part of what needs to be done better than you.
Always.
Any final kind of advice? I think just finishing on those three is honestly just perfect. Say it again. Remind me again.
So getting very clear on your values and your purpose, your why. Setting the boundaries. Say be ruthless with your time. And the third thing is finding your tribe.
I love it. Thank you so much,
you.
Nina. I have Loved talking to you today. I've learned so much, and I just can't wait to continue this friendship. Because you're definitely someone that I'm really looking up to, and I'm learning from. So
thank you. Me too.
It's amazing.
No, thank you. And I said that when the first time we met, I was like, this is the date I never want to end. And I just feel like, this is the second time, and we're gonna keep meeting. And I've always been very I really felt like with you, I found my tribe. So I just want you to know that. Thank you also for being here with me.
Yeah, I think our husbands are in trouble.
At least we're not out drinking.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much to everyone who's listening. As always, I'm just trying to build a community of people who maybe are questioning their relationship with alcohol and looking for ways to unlock their true potential, or just rediscovering who they are and who they want to be. I hope my journey helps. I hope me kind of learning about this publicly helps. Please feel so free to subscribe, like, comment, share. This all helps massively. And I'm going to link to all of Nina's profiles and everything below, so you can check out and connect with her directly then. Thank you so much for watching, and thanks again, Nina. And I'll see you soon. Bye.